Welcome into the DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one rated sportsbook app out there. Use code DNVR when you sign up for a new account. I'm your host, Rudo, joined by AJ Hafey, as always, with this quite possibly being the final day of the NHL playoffs. It's time to talk even more about the expansion draft. That's what we're coming at you with. Hopefully, I'm excited for this division. I think this division could bring the most interesting storylines throughout the next season, right? Because this is the division Seattle's going into, so the players they take, the Pacific that is, are going to be playing against their old teams. A little bit more the same thing that the Vegas players talked about. There's going to be a little bit more direct spite, perhaps, from the players playing against their old teams. So
little more skin in the game for the teams that are losing a player from this division. Sans Vegas, which
doesn't lose a player. But.
By the way, last night when I was making up these lists and I was going through, I was like, there should be 7 of them, and I'm going through
to figure it out,
and I'm like, who's in the Pacific Division that I'm forgetting? What's going on here? And then the light bulb went on. Vegas, AJ.
Yep.
Vegas.
Which, to be honest, Vegas might be begging the NHL to let them in so they could take some of the money off their hands. But
yeah, they would have a really tough protection list.
Yep. It'd be interesting, to say the least.
Yeah.
I mean, to chat's isn't Vegas in a worse situation by not losing someone? Yes and no.
They probably would have been in the same situation Pittsburgh would have been in, where they're probably losing Marc-Andre Fleury.
Yeah, yes, cap space would be nice for them, but also they're going to lose a key piece of their lineup if they were in the expansion draft. So it's a give and take there a little bit. Granted, if it wasn't for the year that Fleury had, that would be a lot more swallowable for them. But,
yeah, I mean that would have been tough because you're looking at, and they were going to have to lose one of those goaltenders. I think is where you would start with their
Seems like an easy.
It's either that or they would have to pay Seattle a significant price to stay away.
Yep. I think the YouTube links should be working fine.
I clicked on the one that I sent and it worked.
Let me see. Yeah, no, it's fine. YouTube link is good, folks. Or at least it's working fine for me. So I don't know what to tell you if you're having problems there. But for Seattle, let's jump into it. Let's start at the top with maybe the least interesting team in Anaheim.
I actually think I would disagree with you, and I think that they might be the most interesting team.
Really? You think so? All right. Well, there are some different conversations with the other teams, but let's get into it. We have them protecting Silfverberg, Raquel, Heinen, Terry, Lundestrom, Steele, and Jones, and then on defense, Lindholm, Manson, and Fowler, and obviously John Gibson in net. I don't think their protection choices are that interesting. Look, they protected all of their young guys and essentially Silfverberg as their longer-term veteran. You get into here where I'm sure AJ is heading with this interesting conversation. Probably starts with Adam Henrique.
So maybe
he gives me the maybe.
This is where again I think this is where having all of the lists at once will be interesting, because they'll be able to build and say
proper hockey team and see where their needs are. Yeah,
exactly. Because I think this will be one of the teams that they want to make their decisions last on, because they can get a legit player on both ends. Because you can forward. Because between Kevin Shattenkirk and Hayden Fleury, they're going to be able to get a decent player. different points in their careers. But Hayden Fleury's had kind of a slow burn to him.
Yep.
But I actually think he's come around a little bit. And I would wonder, I have been of the opinion that Anaheim should probably push the rebuild button here, and they should try to trade Raquel, trade Silverberg, trade Manson. Raquel and Manson going into the final years of their deals. Silverberg has a couple of years at $5 million, so he might be a little tougher to move, but I've been of the opinion that should be their plan here. And if they were to do that, if they were to move Manson, then they could protect Fleury. And I think that would be smart business from them. I don't have any faith that Bob Murray recognizes that. He has seemed to be really insistent on walking this road where they transition away from the Perry Getzlaf era into the next era, to the Trevor Zegras era, and didn't want to do the big sell-off of aging players in order to expedite that. And they've paid the price for it because they haven't been any good in a number of years, and they keep ending up. They keep ending up in drafting 8th and 9th and 10th, where you can get good players there, but it's a lot harder than when you're drafting 1st and 2nd and 3rd and 4th. This
is a Colorado Avalanche pod, and we have continually talked about the disconnect in Anaheim between their amateur scouts and their pro scouts, because something just has not lined up in that organization, and you've seen them ship out so many quality defensemen that they have grown in their organization, and they end up going out and playing for other teams and being quality NHLers.
Yep.
So they definitely are living a little bit in a bed of their own making, particularly on that defensive side.
It is interesting, though. We do talk about we have talked up their draft and development, but you look at that protection list. And
that they're protecting,
you look at Lundestrom, Steele, and Jones. Those are all first-round picks.
Yep.
In the last 5 years, who have not lived up to their billing.
Yep.
And they are varying degrees of NHL players, but none of them
are really high-end talent at all. Yeah.
Look, if they left one of those guys unprotected, Seattle would probably take one of them, but it wouldn't be. It wouldn't be like, oh, shit, they got Sam Steele. Watch out, baby. It's coming. Maybe the switch flips and he turns into a really good player. But right now, he's just okay.
Yeah.
And he's still trying to find his way. And part of their problem, I want to stress this because Colorado is about to go through this. Part of their problem is their refusal to give prominent roles to the younger players, so that guys like Adam Henrique and Ryan Getzlaf can continue to play big minutes for them while they lose games every night.
It's weird decision making for
sure. And it's just look, I understand with Getzlaf, that guy won you a cup. He is a franchise icon.
Face of the team.
I understand going down with that ship.
But they actively went out and acquired Henrique.
Right, and
it hasn't been the magic sauce that they thought it was.
Well, and then when it did not work out the way that they wanted it to, they put him on waivers last year. They tried to just get rid of that money, which is why he's not protected. And then he went out and he had a solid season for them, which 3 years is probably going to be a little too rich for Anaheim or for Seattle's blood.
$6 million, that's tough. Yeah,
it's real tough. That might be one where they maybe want to move somebody, and that's to move an asset or something in order for them to take a Henrique.
Sure,
but I think that's why, we talked on yesterday's show. It's going to be tough for them to find quality centers. But you want to take chances on Jason Dickinson. You want to take chances on
young.
You want to take chances on
players.
Yeah, if they left a Sam Steele or an Isaac Lundestrom opened up in expansion, those are the guys you want to give jobs to and say, okay, well, we'll see how this goes.
It's why your eye is drawn to a Hayden Fleury, right? Yes, he's 24, which is not super young, but not old by any means either. But you can see a path to a breakout with more opportunity for a player like that.
Right, and even if they end up just saying, hey, we ended up with a defense that's actually just a little bit too good here.
Guess we'll get value by flipping dudes.
Yeah, like we can just put Hayden Fleury into the 15-minute-a-game role that he played in Carolina last year and just
vibe.
Just watch him do his thing. Like, he doesn't provide very much offense, but he's shown himself to be a legitimate, a quality defender in the NHL. So it's an interesting spot that they have. Do they want? Do they want? And well, Carolina had their own expansion draft problems.
Yep.
And Fleury wasn't in their lineup all the time. He was just sort of it had gotten to be a high draft pick that they were just kind of tired of waiting on. And I thought it was a strange deal just because Hakanpää doesn't like. I don't think he's necessarily like a significant improvement or anything. It was anyway. It was a strange deal.
They got an all-time hockey name though.
It's true. They got a guy whose last name is also a war chant. Every time we go in to push over bosses in 9.1, I'm just gonna scream Hakanpää.
I'm gonna say Hakanpää. That's our lust call now.
That's right. Yes. Yes.
All right.
I'm with it.
So this is going to be a little bit of a shorter one because there are only 6 teams, with Vegas not getting a player selected. But we can. There you go, Breckton with the Hakanpää. We're going to move on to Calgary now, though. Look, we've talked a lot about this team potentially making some big moves. Presumably those moves come after the expansion draft. So they're going to protect the assets. Tkachuk, Gaudreau, Lindholm, Monahan, Backlund, Mangiapane, Dubé. Maybe they move them. Maybe they don't. Maybe they like being in the Calgary zone after all. And then on defense, we have them protecting Hanifin, Anderson, and Tanev. This does expose Mark Giordano, but that dude is 37 and has played nowhere near his Norris season from a few years ago over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I left, so 37 is the big 37, and going into the last year of his deal, it would make all the sense in the world for Seattle to take Giordano if they wanted to move him at the deadline.
Yep,
because they could retain salary on him and they will get something for him. Somebody will fall all over themselves for Giordano at next year's deadline. It could easily be Colorado. Like you could easily see it being them. They could be any of the contenders next year. Somebody will do something probably irresponsible for end of the line Mark Giordano. And so under that guys, I could see Seattle taking him. But do they want to go that route, or would they rather take an Oliver Shillington?
Sure, go for a younger potential option. There is also the one other thing I did want to talk about here with Calgary. I'm assuming it's going to happen, but Lucic does have an NMC.
Yeah.
So he would have to waive that with the protection list that you have here.
Yeah, and the last guy that I had protected was Backlund.
Okay, so he would be your exposed if Lucic didn't waive.
Yeah, just oldest and 3 years left on the deal at 5.35.
Sounds suspiciously like Adam Henrique.
Yeah. So I think Backlund would actually be an intriguing option for the same reasons that Henrique would be, but the idea of Giordano, getting him and using him as bait, or they could get him and move him immediately.
Just do the flip,
and
retain half, and just flip him right away. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I've got Dylan Dubé protected. I don't see any world where Calgary would leave him unprotected. Even with Lucic, with the NMC, even if he waived that, I still have Dubé. I have him as a protect guy.
Yep.
He's probably their 6th protection of their 7 forwards. Because all of the other guys ahead of him are better. I mean, Kachuk, Gaudreau, Monahan, Lindholm, and Mangiapane are all quality players.
Automatic protects those 5.
Yeah. Those all felt real easy when I looked at it, and Dubé felt like the automatic sixth to me.
Unless you really like Josh Levo or something weird, yeah.
Yeah, don't love Josh Levo, and Dominic Simon was the other one where I was like, maybe. If they were really trying to entice Seattle to take money, they could get the NMC from Lucic waived and protect a guy like Simon just for money purposes and be like, please take Backlund.
Yeah, beg him to take him.
Yeah. But other than that, I mean, the problem then is that they just lost. Great, you got rid of Backlund's contract and all that, but then you lost a decent player. Got nothing in return.
Now you have to go sign a dude to replace that guy. Yeah.
And right, and then they've already got a big problem.
Yep.
In terms of like where they're going.
Right.
Like the direction of that franchise.
I mean, they still have to make that decision, right? It like I said, they could hold pat, but hold pat just leaves them in no man's land.
Yeah.
It's
called the Calgary zone.
Yeah, exactly. It's what they're known for.
Yeah. Like, if you look at Backlund, he's still a really, really solid player.
Yeah, Pickles. I mean, there's a very good chance that Lucic will waive, but nothing's official till it's official, right?
I don't like. I'm sure I'm sure it's the same as with Eric Johnson in Colorado. It's been agreed to. It just hasn't been.
Hence why we put him not protected.
Yeah, it's why he's not protected.
Yeah,
it is something to mention though.
For sure.
I will say if you look at Mikael Backlund. And you compare his underlying numbers to that of a guy like Nazem Kadri, Backlund comes out very favorably.
Yep.
He can still play. The problem is that at 32 and with 3 more years to go on that contract,
if the last 2 years of those are a landmine, you're in trouble. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, at any point,
right,
that deal could fall off the table. And he could, and part of the thing that was different, that was intriguing about Kadri is that he was so good offensively, right? He was such a good goal scorer.
Yep.
And then part of Backlund's appeal is that he was so good defensively, and he gave you enough on offense that you were happy.
Very different look, yeah.
That's not true anymore with Backlund defensively. He's no longer the stopper that he was, the defensive ace that he was. That's just not true anymore. He's not that guy. But he's still driving offense at a decent level. So he's kind of evolved a little bit over his career, but the defensive value is no longer there. Whereas in his prime, he was a really good stopper who drove play a little bit and was good for 45 points. He's still putting up those points, but is not the defensive guy that he was. So,
all right. Well, pour one out for the defense with a Breckenridge Brewery, the official beer of DNVR. You can get it down at the DNVR bar, which, yeah, I'm sure we'll have the expansion draft on down at the bar when it comes around in 2 weeks. You can also get their Good Company seltzers from a local liquor store near you. Use the Breck Beer Locator online to find it. They're awesome. We love them all the way. And also brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 rated sportsbook app out there. When you use code DNVR, you can get set up. Bet $1 to win $264 at UFC 264 if McGregor or Poirier knocks out their opponent in the first round of the main event this Saturday. I believe it's Saturday. That will be at the bar as well. The bar will be showing the UFC fight. So come on down to the DNVR bar. get yourself some DraftKings Sportsbook action on the fights. Obviously, $1 for $2.64 is worth it, but they have plenty of other bets when it comes to every single UFC event. Odds boosts all over the place. If you want to bet on a finish or maybe go in the distance, they have you covered no matter what. Fighting's not your thing. You can, of course, bet on every other sport in the universe, basically, at DraftKings, whether it be from something inside like table tennis or actually, I didn't even think about this. I'm really curious to see what bets they have when the Olympics actually starts up. That's going to be a lot of fun.
I'm ready. I'm so excited to like become like
Olympic content. Yeah,
dude, just become a couch monster. Especially because with the Olympics in Japan.
Yep.
You and I get to shine once again with these 3 o'clock in the morning, the weird ass hours,
the weird sleeping schedules. Just gonna be up watching live sports every night.
Yeah, you guys are gonna see us like live tweeting air shooting at 3 o'clock in the morning and be like,
right. What are these guys on about?
Yeah, what are they doing right now?
England or Italy? So, we have to root for
Italy.
Italy. Yeah. We're in it for Italy. Sorry, it's not coming home.
Sorry, 3 Lions.
But you can bet on the Euro as well. So drive on over to DraftKings Sportsbook, download the app today. Use that DNVR code when you sign up for a new account. Get that $1 bet for a chance to win $264. Must be 21 or older, Colorado only. Other terms, restrictions, and conditions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by that DraftKings Sportsbook. First of all, be sure to like and subscribe here on YouTube. That's a big one for us. Trying to get those subscription numbers up for the channel. You know, I know it's our off season, but we still are going to be pumping out content. Got a couple of videos planned come your way here for the expansion draft, so keep your eyes peeled for those beyond just the podcast. And let's jump into our next team here, as we are going to head a little bit north up to Edmonton from Calgary. The top of their forward core has a couple no-brainers, obviously.
Didn't have to work very hard to come up with this list.
McDavid, Draisaitl, Yamamoto, RNH, Cassian, Puljujarvi, and Cahoon are their forwards.
This might have been the only team in the NHL since I'm going through and doing all of these this week. So far, this is the only team in the NHL that I did not have to look at a list to do this.
Yeah. And then defensively, you have Larson, Nurse, and Ethan Bear. Protecting the lock because they're required to protect a goalie.
Yeah, and protecting Stalock was interesting. Was kind of unexpected, but Mike Smith is a UFA, and it's kind of like it's pretty well known they're going to look around.
I think they'd be begging Seattle to take Koskinen's contract off their hands if they could. But
and they've already talked about buying him out.
Yep.
So it's like, I guess you just protect Stalock then? And this is I genuinely don't know how Stuart Skinner and Dylan Wells have done. I don't know if they have been really good in the AHL or what the deal is with. Since they got drafted, I haven't thought about them since.
Pick one you like if you want to protect one of the other depth goaltenders, whatever. That would be a pretty straightforward one, but I agree. I don't think there's any reason to protect Koskinen or Smith. Looking at their lineup, there are some interesting choices on the forward side. Look, obviously, it never really worked out for Kyle Turris as the hopeful bounce back for him. It didn't.
Yeah, but
maybe you could find some value there. You could look at someone like Josh Archibald on the wing. Look, are you going to get a lot of value out of Edmonton? Probably not, but you can find a player in there.
So at forward, the guy that really sticks out to me is Tyler Benson.
Okay, fair enough.
The guy that, he's been so good in the AHL and just hasn't been given an NHL look for whatever reason. And you remember going into his draft year, he was a top 10 prospect.
Yep.
And injuries just sapped him so much of him that I don't know. I'm always going to be a Tyler Benson guy.
So AJ's going to build an expansion team of a bunch of guys that are like, just put them in the chamber, pull the trigger, and see which ones actually show up in the big moments.
I mean, so I think it's very what happened with Vegas was instructive in that you want a couple of good veterans, right? And so I think Kyle Turris would have been intriguing had he bounced back at all in Edmonton. Had there been any signs of life at all,
he'd be super interesting. But
yeah, and it just didn't really go that way with him. Nashville obviously went really, really poorly.
Yeah, that went south in a hurry.
But he's coming off a 5-point season.
Yep,
5.
To be fair, he only played 27 games, but that's still very bad.
Yeah. That's still like we were dogging Tyson Jost for scoring 3 points in like 23 games. Like that was Kyle Turris' season.
Yep.
So you just can't take him. Had there been any bounce back, he would have been interesting, but you just can't. James Neal got taken in the last expansion draft and went great for him. Fast forward 4 years, 5 years. I don't think that's going to happen again.
He's 33 and he's making 5.75 for the next 2 years. That's tough sell this time.
Yeah, around. and he is. I mean, he's not any good anymore.
Yeah. You just have no idea what you're going to get out of him. His last 3 years, 19 points in 63 games, 31 points in 55. That's nice. But then last year he had 10 points in 29 games, which is
in the 31
Turris, I guess. But
the 31 points in 55 games, he had 19 goals that year, and if I remember correctly, the splits on it were hilarious. It was like 12 of those goals came in the first 2 months of the season, and then after that
started wicked hot, and
that was it, man.
Laughed at Calgary for trading him for Milan Lucic, and that was that.
Yeah, and then James Neal disappeared, and everybody was like, "Oh, that trade happened, right? Forgot it even went down." Anyway, on defense is where I think you're really going to have something.
Are we really going to have the conversation about Chris Russell?
Oh, I was going to talk about Oscar Klefbom.
I want to get to him, but Chris Russell is divisive, okay? We got to talk about it, at least mention it.
Look, 1 year left, $4 million. He's 34 years old. Even if you're just looking at this defense, he's not the most interesting guy. I would rather Caleb Jones over Chris Russell. For me, I would rather Tyson Barrie over Chris Russell. I have no interest in Chris Russell.
I mean, Tyson Barrie's a UFA, but the only reason I bring it up is because I'm curious to see how heavily Seattle's front office actually does lean into the analytics side of the game when it comes to this expansion draft.
Yeah. I mean, look, he's a known shot blocker and a good defender. He suppresses offense. The problem is that he suppresses offense for everybody.
His own team as well, indeed.
Yeah.
So
he has some of the worst play driving numbers of any defender in the NHL. He just doesn't do it. He just doesn't contribute.
So you want to talk about the missed the entire season Oscar Klefbom?
Yeah, well, yeah. I thought he was. I mean, we don't know what's going on with him injury wise, right? But this is a guy that a couple of years ago, when he was healthy, he was legit, man.
Yeah.
He was really, really solid for them. And then he's consistently battled injuries.
Has in the last obviously didn't play at all last season. The last 3 seasons before that, never. His highest games played was 66. So
yeah, in those 3 years.
A guy you're looking at missing probably 20 games a season with at best.
Yeah, and again, coming off missing a full year.
Yep.
So this is one where you could roll the dice. This is like when the Houston Texans drafted Tony Baselli in their expansion draft way back in the day. Tony Baselli was a great left tackle from Jacksonville, but he had injuries, and it was like, look, you take him, and if he gets healthy, awesome. You have a foundational piece here. You have a big time player. If he's not, then you just move. Then you just move on. You know, he's on. You put him on LTIR. You try and figure something. It's only 2 years at $4 million. Just a shade over 4 against the cap. So it's not a backbreaking contract. It's again just 2 years. You'll know by the end of that time whether he can play or not, whether or not he's back from injury.
Yeah,
what he ends up looking like. So for me, I would take that chance. Where I'm iffy is that they would expose him and protect Ethan, because I have them protecting Larson and Nurse and Ethan Bear. I don't know how they feel about this whole Clefbaum situation. And there were rumors that there was this talk that there were going to be he might get an injury waiver, the injury exemption, and then he's on this list. So I was like, all right, well.
Definitely a bit of a weird spot there. But what? So you would, to protect Clefbaum, you would let Larson go, I assume? Or would it be Bear?
Yeah, it would be, for me, it would be Bear, because I think they're going to re-sign Larson before this happens.
Okay.
If they re-sign Larson and then expose him, if I'm Seattle, I'd probably just take him. So
yeah, fair enough.
This is one where the actual lists will help us a little bit, because I just think that would clear up that situation.
Well, right. You just, if it gets to July 17th and Edmonton knows Larson's not re-signing, it's a very different situation. But I will also say that I think at this rate we're halfway through the Pacific and through the Central, and we've picked about 12 defensemen. So
yeah, well, and like we have to also I would be super honest here. That's my bias. My bias is going to be build the defense first. I'm also, when we talk about these teams, I'm also doing this in a vacuum, looking just at this team.
Right, I hear you.
When we do our mock draft, you and I, when we get we have the full list, you and I are going to sit down and we're going to thoroughly build the team out. We're going to make sure we can build for sure. It's going to be. It's gonna be all good, man. Like, we're gonna make sure we have forwards on that team.
Yep.
But it's now, like,
well, and I think the point that you make, as you said, when you look at a team in a vacuum, there's always value on the defensive side.
Right.
Always.
And it's almost, and a lot of them, it's like, it's a guy like Ethan Bear, 24 years old. It's a guy like Hayden Fleury, 24 years old.
Yep.
Been a depth guy, just starting to break into the league, just starting to become a regular, just getting across the finish line of being an NHL regular, and possibly could be jumping into a bigger role here. You know, somebody's going to be looking for their Shea Theodore. Yep. You know, who was just trying to get into the league when the Vegas expansion happened, and he, for some reason, was sacrificed by Anaheim because
they made choices. Indeed. All right, let's get to LA. LA has a bunch of old dudes and a bunch of random dudes for the most part on the forward side. Kopitar, Brown, obviously legends for the Kings. Then they have Arvidsson, who they just acquired, obviously going to protect. Iafallo, just extended, obviously going to protect. And then you get into kind of the other pieces in Kempe, Lemieux, Elias Anderson, who they also made a move for. The one There's one interesting one there that's still exposed in Athanasio, who another guy who's had a down kind of season or two. But on the defensive side, Doughty has an NMC, so they have to protect it, which they would anyway. And then Sean Walker and Matt Roy, or is it Matt Waugh or Roy?
Roy.
Okay. There's the NHL.
You're always guessing.
Yeah, they always have multiple Roys and multiple Wahs in the league, no matter what. It's so hard.
Yeah.
So a couple of interesting options, honestly, on both sides here. I kind of already mentioned Athanasiou. You also have someone like Austin Wagner, if you don't care about the off-ice stuff going on there.
Well, what's off-ice stuff with
it's
Austin with Austin Wagner?
There was old stuff.
Oh, okay. What about Jonathan Quick?
The Kings would be very happy, I think, if they had any interest in Quick.
I think they'd be bummed if Quick got taken and he couldn't finish out his career in LA, but they gave the starting job to Cal Peterson.
Yeah, Quick is $5.8 million to open the bench door at this point for that team.
Yeah,
for the most part.
Cal Peterson took the starting job from him last year. He played 35 of their 56 games. He's their guy. And if he got exposed, he would be the pick. Easily. There'd be no question about it. They would be getting a starting goaltender.
Like at age 26, with one really cheap year left on his deal, that'd be an easy slam dunk if they left him exposed.
Agreed, man. As it is, you look at it, I think there are real conversations here to be had. For one, Andreas Athanasiou, don't bother. Just don't bother.
I know you hate him, but
you know what he is. You know what he is. There's just, in terms of if LA loses him, they can live without him. If they keep him, great. They'll make do. They like him enough. Whatever. It's fine, right? It's just he gets so much people remember that one really good year that he had. Mm-hmm. And they've seen him on a lot of highlights because he's so fast that he ends up on highlight reels. And they just there's just a lack of general understanding and what a poor all-around player he is. And going into his third organization in LA, it didn't get any better. He doesn't play defense. He doesn't try on defense. He doesn't put any work into it. He's not actively trying to get better. He's not trying to do it. He doesn't want to put the work in.
I hear you there, and you have to accept that if you were interested in him. Why I think it's a bit interesting for Seattle is they could put him in a position to just drop him into their top six and say, go play offense. We'll just accept what you don't give us on the defensive side. Now, that could 100% backfire, and maybe you're hoping for 40 points out of it. You're hoping he's Andre Burakovsky, basically, right?
You're hoping he's the guy that he was a couple of years ago. He scored 20 goals, and then you ship him off at the deadline.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously,
that's the upside of the fantasy. You get lightning in a bottle for half of the season, and you move him to somebody who's like, hey, he's finally figured it out this time. I swear. And that team will be a sucker.
Down the line, if you're looking for youngsters with the opportunity to break out, you can talk about potentially Carl Grundstrom or Drake Rimsha a little bit as well. I'm sure AJ has
Austin Wagner, dude. I don't know anything about his off ice, but as a role player, man, he's a legit role player. He's good. He can help you on a fourth line. He can kill penalties. He's speedy. He's disruptive. He's cut from the same exact mold that Logan O'Connor is. So if you like Logan O'Connor, you like Austin Wagner. I don't know anything about the off ice stuff though, so I'm going to refrain from making comment on that. I literally didn't know there was any. I don't know how it's gotten by me. Apparently, it's from back in the day.
I mean, honestly, Well, I could be wrong on that. I don't know the actual validity of it besides having heard about it. So don't read too much into it, probably.
So I protect Elias Anderson here because, again, if that guy's exposed, that's an easy yes for the Kraken. Drop him in as one of the centers and let him go. He's a point per game player in the AHL. He clearly has outplayed that league. It's time for him to prove it. As a former top 10 pick, it's time for him to prove it in the NHL. And if he gets to be in with the Kraken, they could use him as a piece to build around. Well, they could put him in the top 6 and not have any of this like veteran nonsense going on in front of them, and let him either blossom. It would be boom or bust at that point. So I think that would be another one like with Peterson. You expose Anderson, yes.
You have to remember that Elias Anderson was a player that the Kings actively went out and traded for a year ago. So unless they think that experiment has totally failed, it wouldn't make a lot of sense for them to expose him.
Yeah. And then defensively, Doughty, and then I picked Sean Walker and Matt Roy because I talked about Matt Roy recently as one of my underrated defenders in the entire NHL. And Sean Walker's like solid, but there's not really anybody else on that defense that I'm dying to protect.
The other options, this is Olli Mata's 5th team in the league now.
Like a 1-year deal with Olli Mata. I guess Cale Clegg, if you're still a believer in the prospect type from back in the day.
Take a shot in the dark, but I think neither of us have ever been very high on Clegg. So
like he's like an intriguing guy, right? But he's never come close to putting it together the way that the way that you would think. And to be honest, there's just so many more guys that are already like Hayden Fleury's right now better than Cale Clegg.
Yep.
And they're the same age. And so it's just like, look, if Hayden Fleury's already pushing that guy down your lineup, like you're gonna have the same problem with the Kings, which is we accidentally got too many guys in front of him, and he's just not good enough to push a guy out of a spot here. So my interest in Cale Clegg would have been a lot higher 2 years ago.
They could take Avalanche legend Mark Alt.
They could do that.
That is technically an option. That is on the table.
Yep. I don't think he'll be protected, so it would technically be an option.
So, on that note, sometimes you got to manscape your roster, all right? Keep your roster in order. You know, you only have so many tools to work with, so make sure they're looking good with Manscaped. Use code DNVR20. Get 20% off and free shipping when you get the perfect package 4.0. They got the new trimmer, the lawnmower 4.0. The new one it's surprisingly better. Like, I was very, very happy with the 3.0. It did everything I needed it to do. And then the new one was like, oh, this one, I can't even explain how it just does my trimming significantly smoother and easier than the other one, which was good. And now it's great. So good job on Manscaped in making their new product actually significantly and noticeably better. You can also get all of their other stuff, whether it be shave mats, deodorant, toner, you name it. They had breath mints even, I think, AJ, you've bought from them before. So
I bought all of their products at least once just to try them out. All of them.
They're awesome. They make
there were zero legitimate regrets.
Yep. So check them out today. Again, use that DNVR20 code to get 20% off. Also brought to you by Strava Craft Coffee, the CBD infused coffee, which you can get at the DNVR Bar Cold Brew, or go online to StravaCraftCoffee.com and get 25% off your first order when you use code DNVR25. Then you can get their subscription service for 20% off every single time you buy. It's great for your joints, help you feel loose on that end. It's great for other things like migraines, IBS pain. Basically, if you have any aches, it will help you out big time. And then you can swing from the DNVR bar just a couple blocks down to Solace Meds, SOLACEmeds.com. You can order online, again, with the DNVR20 code to get 20% off. Get your order for pickup. Swing in there, get it. just a minute or two, get out of there and get on with your day. Super easy. They also have good deals ranging from 10 to 25% off on various products in store. So check them out. They have 4 locations in Colorado, including one up north in Fort Collins. So they got you covered. Solace Meds. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. We're going to stay in California and go over to San Jose next. They're protecting on the forward side. Most of this, I think, makes sense to me. Couture, Kane, Timo Meier, Tomas Hertl, Kevin Labanc, Ryan Donato, and Marcus Sorensen. And then on defense, they are locked in to protecting Burns and Erik Karlsson, and then Marc-Edouard Vlasic. In goal, they have not protecting Jones. They're protecting Coronash. Because why would you protect Jones?
Please take Jones before they buy him out, is basically what they're saying. Please take Martin Jones.
Maybe throw a pick at him to take Martin Jones or something. But
it would have to be a good one, because that's 3 more years at 5.75 for Martin Jones.
It'd be if I'm Seattle, you couldn't sell me on taking Martin Jones, basically.
It would take San Jose's first pick this year.
Pretty much, yep. So probably not worth. Not really a ton to talk about for once on the defensive side. I guess if you like Simek, you could.
Simek is the only guy that I was like, I guess maybe. Old friend Nick Malash, I guess.
With 7 NHL games in his career or something.
Yeah, offensive. Really, this one. There's only one guy on here that I am actually interested in taking, and it's Rudolph Balcers.
Ooh, yeah.
And that's I protected Marcus Sorensen because I don't have any idea who the last protect slot is on that one.
Give it to Nieto now that he's extended, maybe. But
if it's not Sorensen, it could easily be Balcers, and if it is, then I probably just take Dylan Gambrell. Yeah, Matt Nieto would also be fine, though, because you know what you're going to get with Matt Nieto. You're going to get a really good locker room guy. You're going to get a fourth-line guy. You're going to get a PK guy. You're going to get a nice little player that you can build around.
Yep.
Combine him with Austin Wagner in LA, and you've got two-thirds of a
forwards. Yeah,
you've got 2/3 of a really good fourth line. And look, when you're building a roster, that may not sound like it's very important, but that's how Vegas was successful. They went out and they targeted specific guys for their fourth line and then just kept them.
I mean, every team has to ice a fourth line. So you have to get those players somehow.
Yeah. They can choose to build a good one here. Their problem is going to be building a first line. But they could build a quality fourth line in this expansion draft if they actively look to go get it, and they don't treat their fourth line like leftover spots where they try and load up on skill players and they end up with 12 guys who have played top 6 minutes their whole lives and they don't know how to play in a bottom 6. With a guy like Matt Nieto, you're going to have a guy that's comfortable playing in a bottom 6, playing in a depth role. He's very comfortable with that. And again, come deadline time, that guy's going to have some value, especially on a 2-year deal at $700K. Like, Matt Nieto is going to be, he's going to be a name that you can easily look at and see as a potential deadline add if they wanted to add a mid-round pick.
Yep.
At the deadline. Like, that's, or they could just keep him.
I mean, Nieto's a nice one because it takes nothing to move that guy, right?
Yeah.
Every team in the league will say, we'll throw you a late pick for a Nieto if they need to fill out some roster depth, because at $700K, any team in the league can have him.
And he drives a little bit of play. He's not going to score for you.
Yeah,
but
we'll brick everything, but it'll create a lot of stuff.
Alex True would be another guy that I certainly would would have an interest in. A name that the chat asks about. Alex True would be fine.
I mean, right. This is where it gets hard to pick your poison without having official lists from every team, right? Because when you have all of the lists, if they need a center, Alex True makes a little bit more sense than a
Yeah.
Matt Nieto.
Definitely.
So it's going to come down to building a hockey team at a certain point. The point being, you can like Gambrell, you can like True, you can like Balsers, you can like Nieto. Pick your winger, pick your center, and be happy with your depth guy.
There's not a significant difference in any of the names that you just mentioned.
Exactly. Yep. Okay. Lastly, we have the team set up to be Seattle's rival, at least by location.
The geographic rival.
In Vancouver. And Vancouver, again, a lot of pretty obvious forwards at the top of the list. Besser, Horvat, Miller, Pettersson, even Pearson after this last year. Pretty easy to protect.
Yep.
And then you have Mott and Roussel as well at the bottom. Defensively, these are I think the only 3 defensemen they actually have currently under contract for next year. And Myers, Schmidt, and Jolevi, they have RFAs, but they're not signed yet.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess they do have Madison Bowie. That's right. But
yeah, and yeah, go ahead.
Just round it out. They're protecting Demko over Holtby, obviously.
Yep.
But so look, again, on the forward side, you could pick an old dude who's heading into UFA if you thought they were worth it, or you can kind of look down in their depth and whoever you like as a 23-year-old type of player.
Well, and again, if you're trying to make a decent fourth line here, you could go Jay Beagle, put him with Matt Nieto and Austin Wagner, and congratulations, you just made a fourth line out of the Pacific Division.
Yep. Pretty easily done.
The Mounties apparently don't like that idea.
They're coming for you, all right?
Yeah.
Jay Beagle is not allowed to leave Canada.
I did not protect Jake Virtanen because of his ongoing legal issues.
There's a lot of stuff going on there.
I really didn't know how to handle that one, but I figured they wouldn't protect him and he won't get taken.
Just not dealing with that. Yeah.
I basically just put my hands up and said, I don't know what to do here. So I didn't protect him, and I don't think he's getting taken, so I'm moving on. But there are any number of younger guys that I didn't protect. You know, Jimmy Vesey's actually turned himself into like a decent depth guy. But then you get into the high picks. Godoyevich and Cole Lind were high second round picks that just didn't do anything.
They haven't done anything, but they're 22. Maybe you see some upside there.
Yeah. Like they've also been stuck in an organization where basically the only thing that Vancouver has had in the last couple of years is top 6 forwards.
The young, successful wingers.
So it's just like, well, trying to find jobs for all these guys has been an issue for them. So I'm not sure. I'm really kind of blah about the forwards. Protecting Myers was an obvious one. Uelevi, fine.
I mean, Schmidt and Myers slam dunk, and then the third one is like kind of whoever.
Yeah, and there's even with Nate Schmidt, you have the rumor out there that Vancouver's going to try really hard to move on from him. I don't know that try really hard is going to include giving him away completely for free.
That would be shocking, I think.
A year after they got him for a 3rd round pick. Could you imagine 2 years ago telling us that Nate Schmidt gets taken in expansion?
Not a shot in the world.
And everybody was just like, yeah, okay, I get it.
Yeah, man, Vancouver is just not very interesting, are they?
Dude, the Pacific Division. It's almost a punishment that Seattle has to take players out of this division. But I think depending on how the forward stuff shakes out, like, yeah, I don't know, man. Like I always really liked Cole Lind, so it'd be like, fine. Do that.
And yeah, I could totally see that being we'll take a depth forward and even potentially to be like to start in the AHL and not even on their starting roster because they are players like that.
This is also a good candidate. They could take Zach McEwen, who has kind of slowly built his way into like a decent depth guy. But this would also, just looking at this list right now, honestly, this is one where we're looking at a strong candidate for they take a UFA that they have no intention of signing.
Yeah.
The old Chris Thorburn here.
We've been through the entire Central and the entire Pacific now, and this might be the weakest list of available guys we've seen so far.
Yeah, this is where they take Travis Boyd.
Yep.
And everybody goes, why?
Okay, moving on. That's what.
And then they don't sign him, and everybody forgets that it happens, and it becomes it becomes a trivia answer someday for bar trivia.
It's like
in Vancouver,
the Avs and Brooks Orpik at that point, basically.
Yeah, straight. I mean, the Avs and even Calvin Pickard ended up playing no games for Vegas. So, any interest in Braden Holtby?
No.
I look. It's 1 year.
Yeah.
There's only 1 year left on that deal, so you could talk yourself into it and say, sure, he'd be our starting goaltender. He could be the starting goaltender on opening night or whatever. But he could be the backup depending on the other guy that they end up with. But you're really not taking it. You're just kind of like shrugging, and you're like, outside of the adorable turtle story, he hasn't done anything in a few years.
That'd be like they mixed up their lists and someone got their signals crossed and they forgot to draft a backup goalie, and they're like, well, Braden Holtby's still out there.
They get to Vancouver.
Yeah.
They're doing it alphabetically, and they're like, shit.
We need a goalie.
Yeah. No, sure. Like, I could see, look, if they took Braden Holtby on draft night, fine.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be the worst thing in the world. I just don't think there's any reason to do it, right?
It's a 1 year deal. And again, if that guy plays really well for half of a season, they could again package him up, retain salary on him, move him at the deadline, and maybe they get something out of him. Maybe he's just a 1 year.
I mean, we've talked about already how you get less for more looking at someone like a Laurent Brossoit, an Anton Khudobin.
Yeah, a Jake Allen. Yeah, I mentioned from Montreal. Like, we'll get into Montreal tomorrow. I think tomorrow
or Friday, one of the two. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't decided on the order of the Eastern divisions yet. I have. We're doing the Atlantic tomorrow. I just don't know who's in the Atlantic.
Dude, 1 year of mixed up divisions, and it all goes out the window.
Yep, that's exactly it. I have no idea anymore because I'm just like, I don't remember.
Yeah, so it would just be a weird option to take Holtby with the potential other things out there for the price.
Yeah, it like, again, in a vacuum, Holtby from Vancouver, you look at the rest of this shitty roster and you're like, okay, that makes sense.
Not a terrible option that way, yeah.
But then when you look at the entire league as a whole, you're like, wouldn't you rather just take Cole Lind and just be like, okay, this is fine?
Yep.
Take Jimmy VC or Zach McEwen, like guys that you can give specific jobs to.
Yeah, someone that maybe you get lucky with instead of Holtby at the end of his career on the downswing.
Oh, Montreal is in the Atlantic.
Sometimes lucky.
Got it. I knew that. Totally, guys.
They're way too cool to be in the Metropolitan.
Yeah. Who's in that one? I love that the Metro feels right. Like all those teams that are in the Metro, except Carolina and Columbus.
And then there's two just random ones. That is like, wait a minute.
Like when I think of like, I don't know. When I just think of like Metropolitan, I'm like Detroit and Boston would be better fits there.
Yeah. As far as Boston, definitely. Detroit, similar to.
Yeah.
But then, Florida ruins everything because they have to throw two Florida teams in one of those East divisions. And it's like, well, okay.
Yep.
I say that as one of those teams is about to win the cup, but.
Yeah.
In any case, we're going to get out of here for the day. Thank you, everyone, for watching, listening, however you consume the pod. We appreciate all of y'all a ton. We'll be back at our normal time tomorrow, 1 p.m. probably. I actually have a dentist appointment in the morning, but that should be over well before 1 o'clock, I hope, unless something bad has happened. Anyway, we'll be back live tomorrow with the East, at least the Atlantic, looking at that part of the Seattle expansion draft. Hope to see y'all in the chat. Until next time, we will talk to you all later.